All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Reimagine virtual candlelight vigil. We're going to be in conversation today with Ricky Ian Gordon, who you just heard grace us with some beautiful music to open up this session. There's going to be more where that came from in a very expansive way. For those who you don't know, Reimagine is a nonprofit organization. We are catalyzing a uniquely powerful community. Our aim is to help people of all backgrounds face loss, adversity, and mortality to create a more compassionate world. I am the executive director of the organization, Brad Wolf, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this space where we hope to reinterpret some of the hardest parts of life. We see that we're all experiencing, in some ways, pain, loss, injustice, loneliness, suffering. However, we believe that those parts of life are also connected to love, to equality, to growth, to community, to service. And when we connect our pain to our well-being, we can have a more holistic perspective on all that life brings our way. And in community, we can literally transform ourselves and the world. So thank you for being here in this space of connection and taking your time out of your evening or your day, wherever you are in the world, to join us. I do ask that you turn your cameras on if possible, as we want to make this space as human as possible, despite being connected vis-a-vis technology we know now as Zoom. It makes it a little bit nicer when we can see your faces, but everything here, as you'll see, is just an invitation. So whatever calls to you, if you want to keep your cameras off, that's fine too. Everything is for your, just however it lands for you is how it's meant to be. Now I want to turn it over to my colleague, Andy Engel, who put together this special experience this evening to share with us a little bit about what kind of space this is.
Thank you, Brad. This is a collective space to grieve. It's a space that cultivates compassion for others and for ourselves. Most of us have arrived here with some kind of pain in our hearts. And our hope is to help people of all backgrounds, all abilities, to face loss, adversity, and mortality, and to create a more compassionate world. This is a space for bravery. It takes courage to show up for others, especially folks who you don't know. And it takes courage to lament and to grieve in public. There are few spaces to acknowledge and share our personal and collective grief. With all that's going on in the US and around the world, now more than ever, people need access to gatherings where they can talk about living and dying, where they can talk about illness, but also joy. Let's choose to respect and honor all lives lost, regardless of religion, nationality, or ethnicity. So thank you for co-creating this space with us. Finally, this space is not perfect. We might fumble, we might falter, we might offend, but we ask for your grace. So what kind of space this isn't? It's not about blaming. It's not about imposing belief systems on others. It's not about providing solutions. It's not about fixing things. Another thing I want to emphasize is that although this is not a political space, it is a space to cultivate social justice. Our colleague Mazen Jamal has offered this definition of justice. It's, quote, an environment of integrity and wholeness achieved through healing and transformation. When justice is present, we can trust that our safety and well-being are valued in a community or society. So this is our aspiration for tonight.
Thank you so much, Andy. And this is the opportunity for everyone who's joined us to opt in to those beautiful values that are at the root and foundation of this experience. If this space isn't for you, that's totally okay too. Again, it's an invitation, so this would be the time to roll off. But thank you all who are here joining this vigil as we move forward into the ceremony itself. So here's what we're up to tonight. First of all, I want to thank our colleague Amanda Nagai for the beautiful altar that you see represented throughout this experience. We're about to engage in a candle lighting ceremony, so if you don't have a candle handy or a lighter or a match or an app with a candle on it, this is your time to go grab that. It'll be a couple more minutes till we light our candles, but if you don't have a candle, all good. So we're going to move into the candle lighting, and then we're going to have a special sacred conversation between Andy and our guest, Ricky Ian Gordon. And then we're going to move into the honor ceremony, where we're going to be using the chat feature to share names of people that we want to hold in our hearts, emotions we want to release. And Tom Mason, our friend Tom Mason, is going to introduce us to the honor ceremony. I do want to get that chat going now, but not for the honor ceremony purposes. Andy talked about the concept of joy as part of this space, even though it's a space for lament. Be curious to hear from all of you out there today. Is there something that you can find in your day or in your week that's bringing you joy? And you might want to introduce yourself to the others here and get that chat flowing. This is where we're going to not only share the honor ceremony, but eventually also share gratitude for our speakers and for one another for being in this space. So what is bringing you joy? From there, after the honor ceremony, we're going to move to the candle extinguishing, which we'll do together. And then we're going to close with some announcements and some next steps for everybody here this evening. We have it's a 90-minute program and we're 15 minutes in. So that's what's happening. And you don't have to do anything. Just sit back and be where and with yourself and with this community here, and we're off to the candle lighting. So I'm going to get my candle lit. I invite everyone to do the same. And with our candles lit, I'm going to read this blessing and then invite my colleagues Nicole and Amanda to join me. We're all together collectively going to read this 3 times, and I invite you to join in wherever you are, uh, to speak these words out loud if they call to you or just in your heart. By lighting our candles, we mourn division, terrorism, murder, war, trauma, hatred, and all that is disconnected from love. We honor our personal dead, the dead across the world, and all of us still here together.
By lighting our candles, we mourn division, terrorism, murder, war, trauma, hatred, and all that is disconnected from love. We honor our personal dead, the dead across the world, and all of us still here together.
By lighting our candles, we mourn division, terrorism, murder, war, trauma, hatred, and all that is disconnected from love. We honor our personal dead, the dead across the world, and all of us still here together.
Thank you, everyone. Now I'm going to turn off my screen share and invite everyone who has a candle lit, or even if you don't, to hold up that candle to the screen. We have some friends that we're all together here in this space, and we like to take just 30 seconds to find somebody we don't know, somebody's name, a square out there, and just make eye contact and share a positive, heartfelt intention in your heart for a stranger. Thank you so much. I couldn't resist. I see my own father, Jim, who's a physician out there, and so I felt called to share some loving intention with you, Dad. Thanks for being here. That's really sweet. And thanks to everyone who's just taken a minute out of your day or a few seconds to make our hearts a bit brighter towards somebody we don't know, and to imagine what it would be like if everyone right now across the world was doing what we're doing and just holding some space with love in our hearts for somebody else across some kind of divide, whether it be digital or otherwise, what the world would be like if we were all just holding that loving presence for somebody else. The world would be in some kind of state of peace. All right, so thank you. Now it is my pleasure to introduce to you our special guest, Ricky Ian Gordon. Born in Oceanside, New York, and raised on Long Island. After studying piano, composition, and acting at Carnegie Mellon, he settled in New York City. There, he quickly emerged as a leading writer of vocal music that spans art song, opera, and musical theater. Ricky's songs have been performed and recorded by Renee Fleming, Dawn Upshaw, Judy Collins, Kelly O'Hara, Audra McDonald, and even Kristen Chenoweth, and so many others. His newest work, called This House, receives its world premiere at Opera Theater of St. Louis on May 31st. We're grateful to have you, Ricky, and I can't wait to have you connect to our colleague who put this event together, who often holds these sacred conversations, our wonderful collaborator, partner, and leader of these virtual events, Andy Engel.
Thank you, Brad, and welcome, Ricky, live from St. Louis.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me, Andy.
I also want to thank you. I also want to thank the Opera Theater of St. Louis, where you're beaming in from, for helping to make this live stream happen. You're in a very busy period now, and we'll talk about that. I also want to give a shout out to Dancing Fox Pictures for helping make this live stream possible also. Ricky, we always ask our guests this question before we begin. And that question
Okay.
is, who are you honoring and who are you remembering at this vigil?
Well, I'm, what comes to mind is Jeffrey, and my partner who passed away in 1996. But when right before we did this, and then when Brad was talking, um, I thought of, the line from Stanley Kunitz. Oh, I have made myself a tribe out of my true affections. How shall the heart be reconciled to its feast of losses? And I just thought, there's Jeffrey, but since Jeffrey, there's my mother, my father, two sisters, many friends. It's just, so I would say Jeffrey forefront.
We're going to talk about a number of those people, including Jeffrey, tonight. But first, I want to talk about writing. You do a lot of different kinds of writing, and we often talk about the transformative power of writing. Um, I want to thank you for bravely sending this book out into the world. This is Ricky's new memoir. It's called Seeing Through, a Chronicle of Sex, Drugs, and Opera. Great title. And it's a beautiful big pink book. I can't recall a memoir that I've read in recent memory that has so much honesty, that breaks so many taboos. There were many sections when I read it that made me uncomfortable. But at the same time, I found it utterly compelling, utterly beautiful. Your memoir covers such a wide range of grief and loss. And we at Reimagine also touch on a very wide range of losses.
Yes.
And that includes everything in this book from the grief of caregiving. You did a lot of that. Struggling with addiction, surviving family abuse, personal trauma, collective trauma. And at Reimagine, we've been encouraging folks to see things through, seeing through, and do that through creative and spiritual expression. You write beautiful music, Ricky. We're going to hear more of that tonight. And you also write beautiful poetry. You set poetry to music, including the work of Marie Howe, who just won the Pulitzer Prize.
Yes, it's very exciting.
But I would say, you're primarily known as a composer. That's what you write. And now you're a memoirist. So please tell us, what was the spark to write this memoir?
Well, I was like a lot of people in the theater. I was previewing my new opera at Lincoln Center in was it 2020, and it was March 12th, and we were supposed to open March 23rd, and Intimate Apparel. It was supposed to be done. It was the Met Opera and Lincoln Center Theater commissioned it, and on March 12th, every theater in New York closed. So my partner Kevin and I took our little rescue dog Lucy, and we drove up to the country where we have a little house on a lake. And I thought we were going to be there a couple of weeks, and then we'd go back to rehearsals. And as we all know, it was 2 years. So when I had been there for a little while, once I recognized, okay, I'm not going to be getting back to Lincoln Center anytime soon, I almost felt angry at music, because so much of my work was delayed, postponed, or canceled. So I decided, it was sort of an instinct, I decided to start a writing group. And Marie Howe I said, Marie, what do you think about that idea? And she thought it was a great idea. So we got a bunch of our friends. It was Marie, Nick Flynn, Donna Massini, Victoria Riddell, Michael Klein, Martin Moran. A bunch of us would meet every Friday. And my impetus for the writing was, I knew I wanted these people to love me. You know what I mean? Like, I find them incredibly brilliant, these writers. And I felt like I was the nobody in the group. I mean, in terms of being a writer, I am established as a composer, but I've never written a book. So I knew the only thing I could do was I could experiment with how deeply I would allow myself to be known by these people. And because the world was closed, because I didn't feel like anyone was doing anything more or less interesting than I was, I felt enormous freedom, and especially expressive. I just felt like no one's here. And it almost felt like no one was ever going to read it. And there was a kind of energy to whenever I would read my work in the group. And one day, really on a lark, now Andy, you met me because of my opera Ellen West that Jennifer Zetland did. Well, when I did Ellen West, Frank Bedard, who wrote that, had just won the Pulitzer. And there was a Pulitzer dinner, and I sat next to Jonathan Galassi from Farrar, Straus and Giroux, the publishing company. So one day, completely on a lark, I sent him a couple of chapters of this memoir I was writing. And I just said, you don't even have to read this, but if you do, I will say this. And I knew he had really liked Ellen West. I said, you'll probably never read a composer memoir like this, because I had already written pretty far into it. So I sent him a couple of chapters, and he gave me a book contract. It was shocking. I mean, in this group, like to announce, you guys had just got a book contract with Farrar, Straus and Giroux, and Jonathan Galassi is going to be my editor. I think they wanted to throw rocks at me, but they also love me. And that's really, and it was so, it was like an exorcism. It was like catharsis. And the truth is, Andy, those things that you said about that sometimes it makes you uncomfortable, it was incredibly uncomfortable to write, and that was the experiment. To surrender my investment in being liked and commit instead to being known.
Thank you for that, Ricky. I'm glad you brought up Intimate Apparel earlier on. This was the opera that ultimately got shut down during the pandemic.
Right.
And you are now, again, at the Opera Theater of St. Louis. You are birthing this new opera. And we heard a bit of that music from your opera at the very beginning. For those who tuned in early, we'll hear more. Can you tell us about this new opera?
Yes. This new opera, now Intimate Apparel, I wrote with Lynn Nottage, the playwright who people know. She's won 2 Pulitzer Prizes, a Genius Award. And I wanted to do another piece with her. Intimate Apparel was for me, a very fruitful collaboration. She's brilliant, as you can imagine. And so during the pandemic, I talked to my friend Jim Robinson, who was the artistic director here. Now he's becoming the artistic director of Seattle Opera, but he's directing our opera here as this swan song here. And I said, what about doing a new opera for Opera Theater of St. Louis? And he had just seen Intimate Apparel, and he really loved it. And so he said, what about you and Lynn doing another opera? And I called Lynn, and she suggested, Lynn went to Brown University, and her daughter Ruby went to Brown and had recently graduated. And Lynn suggested we do an opera based on a play that Ruby had written at Brown called The House. And I changed it to This House because of how it's set in the libretto. But I thought it was a great idea, and I barely knew Ruby, but it ended up being incredible for me. Ruby is a poet, and it's almost as if Lynn, who's brilliant at scaffolding, created this beautiful scaffold that Ruby could hang her exquisite language on. And they are a mother and a daughter, so they love each other. But it happened so often that I would write to Lynn and go, oh my God, who wrote these words? And then she would say, Ruby's magic. And it's like that. It's been, and we just started. I got here a week ago, and this part of when you've been alone in a room for a few years creating this piece, suddenly you're in a room with these characters who have been inhabiting you every day, 24 hours a day, and there they are, coming to life. It's so profound. It's like, that's as addictive as any drug. That's why I keep writing.
And this house is set in Harlem, yes.
Yes, it's about a house in Harlem over a century, and our concern with this house is that it opens with a woman named Zoe and her husband Glenn showing up on the stoop of this house on 336 Convent Avenue because she grew up there and she's thinking it might be a great place to raise she's pregnant and to raise their family, but she feels that she needs to check in with her family first. And Glenn goes and gets cappuccino, and Zoe opens the door of this house, and really, all I can say is this opera is about confronting not only your own past, but the past of the house your family has inhabited since it was built. And which is, by the way, Lynn Nottage lives in the house she grew up in, a brownstone in Brooklyn. And that's obviously the house Ruby grew up in. And when you walk into that house, you are absolutely inundated with history. So,
Ricky, this house, I think when I saw your presentation here in New York about a month ago, it was described as a ghost story. And
yes.
in the book, Seeing Through, your memoir, you share memories of a haunted house on Long Island. Am I describing your childhood home accurately?
Well, my house was a haunted house, but there's a story in my book about that there was a haunted house that I hung out with other boys in, and I lived on an island, so this was a sort of red. It was actually the color of my hat, not red, but sort of maroon, and it was sort of falling down, strewn into the reeds. It smelled like seaweed. It smelled like semen. It smelled like damp mattresses, and I was sexually abused in that house, and then I accidentally, or who knows, I burnt the house down. And so that the whole idea of that house figures into, so there's a lot of my own baggage I bring to this opera. And it was very much like that, by the way, Andy, just to say, we did at one point a reading of the libretto at Brown. And I called Kevin, my partner, and I said, I just don't know. I was very confused by the libretto. I said, I don't know if I can do this. And he goes, what are you talking about? You have to get into a room with Lynn and Ruby and talk this through and turn this libretto into something you're excited about setting to music. And I've always been dramaturgical as a composer. I'm a theater writer, but I've never taken such an active hand in the shape a libretto took. And they were so receptive to it. So it felt like, I really feel like a father, and it's very much my piece. It's very much our piece.
But there was the haunted house that you describe in your book where the abuse happened. And
Yes.
also abuse happened as well in your own house.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was a very intense childhood, and the repercussion, my oldest sister became a drug addict. I mean, big time. She went from being a famous journalist to like a crack addict, jail. My middle sister was a drug addict at one point and then just became agoraphobic. I mean, we definitely expressed our hauntedness. And I would say, Andy, it's funny because this came up in rehearsal today, but the original haunting in my house came from World War II, that my father was a soldier in World War II and came back from that a haunted man. And as most post-war fathers, they were incapable of expressing that. My father didn't have the tools of something like therapy, meditation, spiritual work. He was just a huge, smoldering mess with brilliance and beauty, but like a boil waiting to burst, and just rage at right on the surface and ready at any moment. He was a dangerous man, and it's
there was
very
a scene.
weird. I have to tell you this: before I came here, I was packing. This is a week ago, and I happened to find this. I don't even know where I got it from. It's my father's ID bracelet from the war. It
Wow.
says Samuel Goldenberg. It's his dog tag number, but on the back it says, "Daddy, I love you, Susan." So my oldest sister, she was 2 when he came home from the war, and he hadn't met her. So it just like, I freaked out. I had to put it on, and now I feel like I have my father on me.
There was this moment that you describe in the book when I think you and your dad are together on a staircase, and it's this pivotal moment, this shift, this transition in your relationship. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, I would every day when my father came home from work, I would run down the stairs and I'd jump into his arms and kiss him. And one day I ran down to do that. I don't know how old I was. I was still old enough to run down the steps and wear pajamas. And he pushed me away and said, "We don't do that anymore." And, of course, now I understand it was all related to, because then he started talking to me about why did I have so many friends that were girls, and he made me go into Little League, and now I understand that he was afraid. He feared he didn't think I was masculine enough in the world, and it was going to get me into trouble. His way of approaching that was just basically to push me away, and that was forever until he got old. And then I'm one of the lucky ones in that my father got old enough for us to have reconciliation, which is why I put this bracelet on. And even in that book, I feel like I wrote lovingly about him in the end. It's just that, it was a very painful. I was on, actually, Andy, there was another book about my family, and it was called Home Fires. When that book came out, we were on every talk show, and we were on Good Morning America, and at one point, we were on this sort of a dumb afternoon talk show. It was a woman named Faith Daniels, but she asked me what my relationship with my father was like, and I said, Dostoevsky. And believe me, she had no idea what I was talking about, but my oldest sister screamed.
We've talked about your father. I want to talk about your mother, Eve, a little bit.
Yes.
Mother's Day is coming up.
Yes.
Later in her life, you talk about some of the guilt that you felt. She ended up in a nursing home. Maybe you can tell us a bit about that experience.
Well, I was very close with my mother. I mean, I talk about when my mother was a singer and a comedian in the Borscht Belt before I was born. And she gave all that up to raise a family, but we were basically her audience for her new act, which was mother of the 4 kids and husband of Sam. And I would play for her when I was little, and she was an extraordinary talent, an extraordinary singer. So when the one thing she never wanted to happen was that she would ever go into a nursing home or anything like that. But after my father died, when she got much older, she was diabetic, and she started banging. Like one day, Kevin and I bought her a bunch of clothes. We went to visit her. The next morning, she came to greet us. We were going to take her to breakfast. She didn't even know that there was blood pooled in her sandal, and there was blood on the new pants we bought her. She had just lightly touched the corner of a table to her leg, but her skin was like paper. And it was to gain any control of her constant wounds became impossible, and she needed care. But my guilt was should I have moved her in with me? Should I have moved in with her? Should I have stopped my life? And, you know, but I know that is not what she would have wanted. I mean, my mother was so proud of me. I do know that. I mean, it's funny. This is my third opera for this company. But in 2007, I premiered my first, like, gigantic opera, which was The Grapes of Wrath. And my mother couldn't come to it. I even remember this famous opera singer, Rosalind Elias, played Grandma in it. And one day, after we ran Act One, Roz was just sobbing. And she said, is your mother coming to this? And I said, she can. Like, she definitely couldn't make it to Minnesota. But when I visited my mother in Florida after the opera, I played her on a recording, the opening, which was called The Last Time There Was Rain. And my mother never used words like this. But she was quiet after I played it, and she just went, holy. Like it was holy. And I'll never forget that moment, because I was like, where did that come from?
Well, I think the song you wrote for her is quite holy. I would love for you to play it for us.
All right, so I'm going to give this mic to Cody, and then let me just call it up on my iPad. Oh, wrong one. My mother is a singer. Sing, mama, sing of how you gave up everything. Mama, burned your whole career on a fling. Mama, sing. Sing of all your courage. What, mama? Who said life is fair? You know it's not. Mama, please, you know you've given us a lot. Mama, sing. Sing of all your sorrow. Dream, mama. Borrow what was pretty when you slept. Mama, make believe a promise can be kept. Mama, sing. I love you more and more now. Yes, mama, even though this life is such a mess. Mama, just to hear your voice is a caress. Mama, sing. Sing of how it's not what you expected. Sing and disappointment is directed. No, we aren't born to be rejected. Sing. Sometimes when you're singing, it's funny. Something in your face becomes so real. Mama, what are all those things you seem to feel? Mama, sing. My mother is a singer. Sing, mama, sing of what you gave up for the ring, mama. Sing of what you take and what you bring, mama, sing.
Thank you, Ricky.
Thank
May Eve's memory be a blessing. I know she's quelling for you.
you. I love that.
Let's talk about Jeffrey.
Okay.
Jeffrey Grossi was an actor. It's 1992. He fell in love. We have dinner. He discloses that he's HIV positive, and this is long before powerful drug cocktails, long before PrEP. And at that time, living with HIV meant a very short life. He wrote, quote, "From the beginning, my relationship with Jeffrey had the parentheses of limited time around it." So when a disclosure like that happened back in the day, I would guess so many would have ended that relationship would have ended quickly after a first date. So tell us, what was it about Jeffrey that made you say yes?
Well, first of all, I've never in my life had this experience where basically I was sober. I was maybe newly sober, like 3 years. And Jeffrey walked into a meeting one day. He was a friend of my friend Dan's, and he walked across the room. I was like, I think I'm supposed to be with that person. It was so strange. And I knew Dan was going to have a New Year's Day brunch, and I thought his friend Jeffrey will be there. And I talked to Jeffrey the whole day, and then that night I called Dan, and I said, will you ask Jeffrey if it's okay if I ask him out? And he said yes, but then a few times he canceled on me, and I immediately thought, like, oh, screw him. But he called me, and he could tell, and he said, I really was sick, and I really do want to go out with you. So when he said that at dinner, two things. One was because I was newly sober, the idea of actually being responsible and showing up for someone in a way I never had. And I had worked for years at the Gay Men's Health Crisis, all through it's just that the idea of sort of ushering someone out of the world that I was in love with. But there was that. I thought, wow, this is an opportunity. And the other thing was Mary Rogers, or Mary Gettle, who a lot of people know. She wrote Freaky Friday, and she wrote Once Upon a Mattress. My first date with Jeffrey was on a Sunday. The Thursday previous, she took me to see Paul Rudnick's play, Jeffrey. And it was so strange because in that play, basically it's like he says, we just have to act like AIDS is the guest at the party that we wish would leave, but they're not going anywhere. And it all sort of coalesced at that moment. And I thought, oh, I'm going to love him right out of this world. And I did. I mean, I truly did. Like at one point, he asked me if I would learn the Buddhist teachings because he wanted to die as a Buddhist. And I had just gotten my first opera commission. It was Houston Grand Opera. And I was in the middle of reading the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying to learn those teachings. And David Gockley, the artistic director of Houston Grand Opera, came to New York. And I just said, God, I'm reading this amazing book for Jeffrey. And he said, why don't you make an opera out of that? And by the next day, I had the libretto. I asked my friend Bill Hoffman, who was a famous playwright. He had written a play called As Is, and he wrote The Ghost of Versailles at the Met with John Criliano. Bill said, you don't need me to write that with you. You just have to call Jean-Claude Van Italy. He wrote a play of the Tibetan Book of the Dead in 1983, and it's brilliant. I called Jean-Claude. He FedExed the play. It was exactly what I needed. It was the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It was the teachings illustrated in 17 short scenes. And so the whole last year of Jeffrey's life, I was setting the teachings to music. He heard them 24 hours a day. And then it was it was what he was supposed to hear when he died. The second section of the opera was called the moment of the moment of death, and the words start, "My friend, now is the moment of death. The time has come for you to start out. You are going home." And it's one of the most beautiful things I ever wrote. It was all recorded for him to hear while he was dying. But the morning he died, he literally was sitting on me in bed because I was trying to get prednisone into his mouth because he was breathing strangely, and prednisone was like, at that time in our life, it could wake the dead. But his mother came to the door. She was living with us at that point, and she said, "He's going." So I thought, I can't get up and so I can go put the stereo on. So I just sang it to him, and he died. I mean, it's very strange because I suppose in a way I feel like I've been in shock since that happened. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was like he breathed himself into me. He was this close to my face. And I've always said, like, I always felt like his voice was coming out of me for a long time, as if I had become myself and Jeffrey. And, you know, I've moved on. Like, I love Kevin, and we've been together since 2001. But there is something that happens where you become henceforth yourself and the other. A writer named William Maxwell said that to me, and I find it to be very apt. Like, I didn't let go of Jeffrey, I included him. And I do feel like we do that. Like, I am not Ricky anymore. I'm Ricky and Jeffrey and my mother and my sisters and my friend Leslie, who died in August. And I'm all of my dead ones. And I speak for all of us now. And that's why, as a poet and as a composer and as a memoirist now, that I know that is, I celebrate having the gift of being able to build containers for my grief, which is massive. And I know a lot of people don't have that capacity, and I'm grateful I do.
You mentioned this kind of merging with all of these people who you've lost. I think now's the time for all of us to hear "We Will Always Walk Together," which is from your musical Dream True.
And I should say, by the way, it's okay when I play and sing, you can totally hear it?
Yeah, sounds beautiful.
Okay,
You're
so I
getting
just
a lot
want
of
to tell
love
you
and
about this
getting a
song.
lot of love in the chat, by the way.
Oh, that's so nice. Love back. Well, just to say about this song, I wrote this lyric when Jeffrey was in the hospital very soon before he died, and I would read it to him. And it was almost as if he signed off on it, and then when he died, I set it to music, and Jeffrey, for some reason, was obsessed with giving me a fax machine before I died. This was 1996. And on the day I finished the music, I called my friend Tina Landau, and I was singing the song to her over the phone. And the fax machine, which was not supposed to be able to do this, suddenly became activated and sent a blank fax to me. So I almost felt like Jeffrey signed off on it. So this is that song. Thank you, Cody.
another heart inside which we may start where we left off, journeying together as we have done before, countless times I'm sure. I knew it when I first beheld you, I knew it from the start. There will never be an end. You have always been inside my heart. You have always been my friend. No matter how the sea may part, no matter how the world might end, no matter how the pulse may race and skip and dart, no matter how our bodies mend, no matter any other storms they send us out to weather. You will always be inside my heart. You will always be my friend. We will always walk together.
Bravo, Ricky. Bravo.
Thank you.
Ricky, I did want to talk. I have one final question for you. I was hoping we could hear one more song from you after that, but maybe we'll have time at the very end. But I still want to ask this question for you before you go, and we move on to our next part of the vigil. A lot of us are feeling the chaos right now, if you know what I'm talking about. The loss of democracy, loss
Yes.
of human rights. There's dismantling, there's destruction,
Mhm.
800 billion in federally funded research on LGBTQ plus health has been cut. And we've lost so much more than that. The grief is real. And for many of us, it may be compounded by the personal grief that some of us are here with tonight. So Ricky, tell us, if Ricky Ian Gordon is experiencing grief or despair, where do you see the glimpses of hope and resistance?
Well, first of all, I see it in people like us going out into the streets, continuing to be ourselves, continuing to be real, continuing to be authentic, in being unafraid to be who we are. And I also feel like my resistance is sort of to include it. I'm not going to pretend it's not happening. something very bad and very horrible is happening in this country, and I'm going to write about it and scream about it and cry about it and post about it, and that is what I hope everyone else is doing. I think that this is not a time to be passive on any level. And, you know, the very first day of rehearsal, one of the incredible singers in this opera said, yeah, at the midterms, if we don't become a democracy again, she's leaving the country because she's black and she doesn't want to raise her sons in this climate. And I'm looking at Portugal and Mexico, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm not going to sit this out and stay here if this just continues to get worse. But for this moment, I am part of the active of the hatred that is consuming this country. I have to say, and you know, I wrote a poem about it. I wrote a poem called "Oh America," and it was published in. That's me. I have to write about it.
So writing and other things, there are things we can do to see it through. Okay. Ricky, thank you so much for being in this conversation with me. And I'm going to hand this over to Brad now. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Ricky, and thank you, Andy, for such a wonderful conversation, such heart moving music, and words, just for being present with us and doing something here that's different, and you know, not being afraid to be different, both, you know, in all the ways that authenticity brings us forward and calls us to something bigger than we know, because the truth is something we can actually feel. So thank you. With that in mind, I want to turn our attention to the honor ceremony, thinking about what's in our hearts. This is the sacred part of this experience. And to usher that part of the ceremony in, I want to introduce another very special guest, Thom Mason. Thom is a transformational coach, and he's a Reimagine collaborator, and I like to call him a friend. He supports people with substance use disorder, as well as those living with mental health issues. Thom formerly was a massage therapist. Thom is also a survivor of child sexual abuse. His mission and passion is to lead others on their path to wellness, using tools he has assembled to help ground others and help them experience joy once again. He lives in Ocean County, New Jersey with his fiancée, Aniel, and their cat, Kitsu. Thom, thank you for being here, and thanks for opening up the opportunity for all of us to honor what's in our hearts this evening.
Thank you, Brad. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and honor. And Ricky, wow, he's touched my heart in so many ways. I am, as Brad said, a transformational coach. I've been on my journey for over 56 years. I was sexually abused as a child from age 8 to 19, first by my brother, then by a high school teacher, and I was raped at age 19 after being plied full of alcohol. I've been in therapy for eons, years, and because of holding on to the light within me and realizing that there is power in this pain and there is transformation that is possible through many therapies, through being in a psych ward, which was not a great experience, through talk therapy, through meditation, through prayer, walking in nature, poetry myself as well. Gathering these behaviors and looking trauma square in its eye and not hiding it away any longer, and looking at grief that I experienced. I lost someone very important to me every year since 2008. And as I work toward coming out of my shell, I had a horrific PTSD crash in 2017, and I was not the person that you see in front of you today. But in working towards wellness, I was able to, as Brad mentioned, assemble tools that work. And if we work them, I say to my clients that it's simple, but it's not easy. But it's spaces like this that give us the opportunity to begin to process through our grief, our trauma. And I can't say enough, like, this space that y'all have created is so sacred and so special, and I'm honored to be with you all this evening. So let's begin the honor ceremony. When the music begins in a second, we ask you to share in the chat what you're grieving this evening. Who are you honoring tonight? And anything that you would like to share about them, please feel free to use the chat and let us support you. Thank you.
Before you begin, Ricky, Elliot, would you kindly unmute? Thank you.
Just because Ricky's beautiful music has stopped doesn't mean we have to stop entering names in the chat. These are such beautiful shares, and it's just so precious to be in a space with this type of love and honoring that's taking place right now. So thank you to all of you. Thank you to Ricky again for that beautiful music, and Tom, thank you so much for introing that section with such a vulnerable share and guiding us to see the possibility of transformation even through some of life's hardest experiences. It's a powerful teacher. Maybe Tom, you could just lead us collectively through one or two breaths. I feel like it's a good time for just a bit of breathing.
Absolutely. I love the exercise that I learned from the School of Practical Philosophy in New York. And if you are able to feel your feet on the floor, if you want to just take a deep breath in and breathe in the community and the respect and the honor that is here in the room, and breathe out some of that pain that we're feeling, grounding ourselves. Take another deep breath in. Inhale joy, gratitude, compassion. Exhale anxiety, tiredness. And one last big inhale. Just comfort. Feel everyone in this room surrounding you with universal love and support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now we are at the point in the program where we're going to be collectively extinguishing our candles. I'm going to invite back Tom and Ricky to join me. We're going to read this 3 times, and on the count of 3, we can collectively blow our candles out if you so choose. If you want to keep it lit, that's your prerogative. And if you don't have a candle to blow out, it's another great opportunity if you'd like to join us with just a deep breath. By extinguishing our candles, we release light into our world to keep alive hope and the memories of those we honor today and tomorrow and for the rest of our lives.
By extinguishing our candles, we release light into our world to keep alive hope and the memories of those we honor today and tomorrow and for the rest of our lives.
By extinguishing our candles, we release light into our world to keep alive hope and the memories of those we honor today and tomorrow and for the rest of our lives.
3, 2, 1. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here this evening, for that beautiful ceremony. Now is a wonderful time to share your gratitude in the chat for one another, but also for our wonderful guests this evening, Ricky and Tom, and also for the Reimagine staff, Andy, Amanda, Nicole, and Colin, all of whom are here. Thank you so much for your contributions to this space, and for the collective that we've created here together. This is a living, breathing, definitely breathing now, environment we've created where we didn't know what was going to happen here this evening, and what we've seen is so much love and creation out of hard places. Now, to wrap up, we have a couple announcements to make. I want to introduce you to something that will help you, if you're joining us this evening, carry on this journey that we've started here tonight. Reimagine has been hard at work as a nonprofit the last couple of years, building something new. It's what we're calling our healing and growth platform, where we're inviting people to be part of a new type of social community web site that is totally dislike things like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and these other social networks. It's a site where we can actually be together and process our pain into love, our grief into growth, and our adversity into action. Through social journaling and sharing your story, we get to reflect, to create, to dream, and to act together, and to support one another in simply holding space for one another's stories. And there's guidance there for all of us, and we want you to try it out, because we're inviting now the first people to finally try this new way of engagement that we've been hard at work trying to reimagine through our time together. A way to really, we think, scale the type of thing that's here this evening to the masses, but it's going to take us who are taking the time to really lead the way. And so we need your support and your help making that happen by giving us feedback, by trying this out. And to make that possible, we are about to drop a link in the chat, I believe, that's a survey. The survey is to give feedback on tonight's program. And embedded there, you'll also see an opportunity to opt in to learning more about this platform and to joining this platform and giving us that feedback. But we also want your feedback about this experience. That's what makes this organization, it makes us able to offer things like this to you in ways that work for our community. So any kinds of feedback about tonight, we want to bring you experiences that really open up new dialogue and move people forward in beautiful ways, and also meet them where they're at. So hopefully you've experienced that this evening. And now I want to bring back Andy. Thank you so much, Andy, for this event, and to also introduce some upcoming experiences that are taking place vis-a-vis the Reimagine website.
Our theme in May is mother loss. Both Reimagine and its community of collaborators are presenting events and experiences for those grieving the deaths of their mothers or mother figures. That loss is so expansive. You might be the primary caregiver for a mother or elder with dementia. You yourself might be a grieving mother or a mother who has experienced infertility or miscarriage. This is for everyone. One way could be through writing. We've talked about that a lot tonight. So tomorrow, we have poets James Cruz and Rosemary Watola Tromer for some conversation, some writing, and connecting with others who are preparing for Mother's Day. It's a refuge for people who have lost a mother or a mother figure or a child. And no, you don't have to be a poet to take part. It's for anyone who is heartbroken and anyone willing to open their hearts. It's co-hosted with our friends at Evermore. Reimagine collaborators are hosting a wide range of events this month, including experiences related to mother loss. You can check all of these out with using the link that Nicole is providing at letsreimagine.org to register, including an event on May 29th by Thom Mason. So please check him out. We're resuming the monthly series Making Connections on May 22nd. Perhaps some of you attended last month's kickoff to this series. We showcased 25 innovative projects bringing people together in person and online to reduce the loneliness epidemic. This month, we're going to hone in on some of those innovators, and the focus is on intergenerational connection as a way to foster more togetherness. So please join us for that. We have Room for Grief on May 22nd. It's every third Thursday of the month. It's a drop-in space. It's peer-led. We've got prompts for you, wonderful facilitators, including end-of-life doula Mangda Sengwan Peng. She will be the facilitator for this session of Room for Grief. Join us for that. And finally, please register for our next vigil on June 4th. We've got Leslie Grace Streeter and Nora McInerney. Both are award-winning writers and podcasters. Both are widows. Both are very, very, very funny. Leslie's debut novel, Family and Other Calamities, is coming out on June 1st. Register for all of this on the Reimagine website. And I hope to see you at some of these events. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andy. And you can see out there just how much programming Reimagine is creating in the world or supporting the creation of. Definitely think you should go to Thom's event. So please check that out. Thank you again, Thom, for all the work you're doing. And you know what makes this all possible, we host 400 plus events a year that are generally free or low cost, often sliding scale like tonight's. And that has powered the opportunity to make sure that everyone has a space to turn toward the hard parts of life in community that's accessible and engaging. We want everyone to have access to that and to create their own spaces in their own communities. That's the movement that we're trying to build in the world, and we need your support to make that happen. So thank you to those of you who have already contributed to Reimagine financially, to make a donation, large or small. Every bit helps. In that link that Nicole dropped in the chat, where there's that survey, which we really would love your feedback, it also gives some instructions there for how to contribute to our nonprofit mission. And so we do, again, thank you so much for everything you've done to help sustain and support this community and events and experiences like tonight's. Okay, I want to conclude with a couple thank yous again, some in the form of poetry. I often do this at these vigils. These are called 15s in the spirit of Ricky, your poetry, and Thom, your poetry. These are probably much simpler poems than you're writing. It's a little format that I developed called 15s. They're 5 lines and they're 3 syllables each, and it just makes it easy. And so, as I was listening to your discussion with Andy, Ricky, and listening to you, Thom, I was thinking a lot about just composition in general, composing music, composing words, and also the decomposition of all of the pain in our lives and how that can be recomposted into something beautiful. And so this, to both of you, is called composition. Grace notes you write with your words and hearts, melt divides long apart. So thank you, Ricky, and thank you, Thom, for gracing us with your incredible presence this evening. And I also want to thank our Reimagine staff, and then to all of you who have showed up this evening. This is to you. It's a thank you. We do this every month, sad but glad, to mourn, grieve, grow, and love together. All right, so with that in mind, I wonder, we do have 5 minutes left in our allotted time, and we don't always have a couple of minutes to spare. So that's wonderful, and it gives us the chance to hear from anybody.
Hey, Brad, before we do that, if you wouldn't mind, if we do have 5 minutes left, I did ask Ricky to prepare one more song, and it was on that theme of hope. If he'd be willing to do so, we would love to hear that song.
That sounds like a perfect closing, Andy. Thank you so much.
A Horse with Wings by Ricky Ian Gordon.
I wanna cry, I wanna feel the world around me. I want to cry for those that live and those that die. You sing a lullaby. I want to cry. I want to pray that all my wishes could come true after today. And should I put a word for you in, should I say an extra Kyrie? I pray. I wanna lie, I wanna think that things are better than they are. I wanna think we've gotten further, and that far is just an inch away. I wanna lie. A horse with wings. I wanna think of things like that and other things. I want two brothers, one who laughs and one who sings. I hope the future brings a horse with wings. I wanna know the things they told me way back then were really so. I wanna make a little mark before I go, not barely just get by. I wanna fly.
Thank you so much, Ricky. A horse with wings. That is a hopeful idea that just kind of floats out there to guide us forth. As we move out into the evening, Ricky, for your next opera, I have something for you. It's a chorus that you're going to love that's going to be inserted in your next opera, and it's made up and composed of all the people that are on this call. Because we have learned, as we've seen before, Zoom is a very challenging medium to communicate music through, and you've done a beautiful job. But we have found, while most things are really hard to make sound good on Zoom, there's one thing that just sounds great, and that is the chorus of the people in this audience all collectively unmuting themselves and simultaneously saying the word love and singing it out over and over and over again, a chorus of love. And that's how we're going to close out this experience this evening. So please, Ricky, let us know if we got the part. We're going to count down from 3, and then let's just send ourselves out into the world by unmuting our voices and letting love ring out into the night. That's what we're really all here to be in, a state of love. So thanks again for everyone's presence and all of your love. 3, 2, 1 to unmute. Love, love,
Love for all of those who have no voice and cannot speak. Love.
love, love. Ricky, what do you think?
Love it. I'm taking it with me.
Take it away. Thanks, everybody.